Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam President of Barbados, Dame Sandra Mason, distinguished heads of state and heads of government of the Caribbean community, Secretary General of the Caribbean community, Secretary General of the United Nations, President of the European Commission, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Justice of Barbados, the Honourable Mr. Leslie Haynes, distinguished ministers of the Caribbean community, members of Parliament, members of the judiciary, members of the diplomatic corps, ministers from Saudi Arabia, Canada, France, and indeed Special Envoy from the United Arab Emirates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You have heard everybody on this platform this evening. And what is clear is that it cannot be business as usual. We have come to Bridgetown in this year of 2025 at a time when the world is reeling from all kinds of problems. The climate crisis, we don't need anyone to tell us about it. Prime Minister Mitchell spoke from the heart with respect to the consequences of Hurricane Beryl in CARICOM, in Petit Martinique and Grenada, in Union Island, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines generally, to the farmers in Jamaica, and to the fisher folk and fishermen of Barbados. We know what it is each summer to have to hold our breath and to wait and to hope that this is not going to be our turn. We know firsthand how the world has become an awful place since the pandemic, where all of the warts and all of the scars and all of the cuts have become very, very clear and open for everyone to see, and where effectively the world has said that might is right, and where small states are often excluded because our orders are too minuscule to command attention. We live in a world where fake news is now the order of the day. And day by day, leaders, not just of governments, but of churches, of private sector, of households, have to worry about the fact that someone will post something that probably is not true about them. We live in a world where the opportunity for facts and shared values in common spaces is becoming rarer and rarer, simply because everyone is into their own echo chamber rather than in national entities being able to share and to relate so that we have a common perspective to keep our democracy strong. This meeting, my friends, cannot be business as usual. The Secretary General has already heard me on the fact that the only way we will make it through these difficult times is if we are prepared to be more unified and bolder than ever. I pray that those comments which have been made up here, and I thank Decon for also speaking on the matter of reparations and reminding us of the importance of the Africa Union this weekend. I was there, yes, with the Secretary General and Professor Arama from the Africa Exim Bank. And indeed, the partnership is strong, and we await the next meeting, the first one ever in person, on the 7th of September. We thank you, Ursula, for coming to the Caribbean, because in this world of grave difficulties confronting us at all levels, partnerships across the world will be important if we are going to survive the many challenges that are not unique to any one region, but indeed hold all of us in a very, very difficult position. I ask us, as we reflect on these matters, to recognize that if this institution of regional unity is to be fit for purpose in the 21st century, the third decade, then it may well require some decisions, Ralph, that those of you like Roosevelt and yourself may have wanted to see in the past, but have eluded us thus far. Freedom of movement of Caribbean people is at the center of who and why we are here. And I trust and pray that we can leave Bridgetown with clarity on this objective. Secondly, the issue of cost of living continues to bedevil too many of our people, and we run the risk that our traditional sources of food may well become more difficult to access because of the climate crisis and because of decisions on the movement of labor. And to that extent, while we have spoken at length always about creating new sources for imports while boosting our production regionally, we can no longer speak about it, but it must become our reality, because food and water are the new oil of this 21st century. At the same time, our education is in shambles in the region, and the quicker we come together and coordinate the reform that is necessary for it, the better we will be, because we cannot build out this region with the old educational systems of the colonial system that are hierarchical in nature and ignore the reality. Ignore the reality. We did not manufacture in the past, nor now, guns. And the Secretary General of the UN has put it most appropriately in his speech. But suffice it to say, as I said on our own Independence Day in Barbados last year, we in this region are paying too high a price for the Second Amendment rights of Americans. And the reality is that we have come at this point with a George Bridge Declaration reached by heads of government in Guyana on the 25th of November last year that will allow us to address issues of strengthening our law enforcement, strengthening and reforming our criminal justice system, but above all else, treating crime as a public health disease, and also ensuring that we create the opportunities for our young people so that they are not taken on that path that has led us in this region to have one of the highest homicide per capita rates, regrettably, in the world. My friends, I have said these things recognizing that if ever there was a time for us to make bare our hearts and our minds to each other as heads of government, it is at this point. And I trust and pray that if we are able to do so, then we truly can hold hands and walk in lockstep. This is not a moment today for me for a lot of long talk or a lot of long speeches. What is required of me as chairman is to ask each and every one of us to make that commitment, to expose our hearts and our minds and find common ground and common purpose, so as to ensure that as the world starts to fall in ways that none of us expected 20, 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago, that we can hold a center, recognizing that we will always, always, always be stronger together. We have a responsibility to reform this institution. We have spoken for too long as to the need for independent funding mechanisms, whether it is assessed at the imports, whether it is an issue of a small fee for all border passings, people coming in and out of our borders, or whether it is the assignment of renewable energy licenses to CARICOM and our regional institutions. The time is upon us for settling the independent funding of this Caribbean community. In addition, we need to review the governance mechanisms and to recognize that there may be a need for a greater political voice alongside the administrative structures of CARICOM as we have come to know it over the last few decades. I pray that as we reflect on the urgent need for cooperation and unity, that above all else, we shall continue to see our people up front and center. In that regard, The Haitian people must be at the center of all that we reflect upon. Their situation continues to be of major concern to us. And it is not going to be sufficient just to be able to say that Haiti will have an election on November 15th. It is not going to be sufficient to just stabilize the security situation of Haiti. 30 years ago, when I came to public life, my Prime Minister at the time made his first trip when he was sworn in to Washington to deal with the issue of Haiti. 30 years on, we are dealing with it again. In the absence of a proper development plan that sees the people of Haiti, that gives them minimum rights of education and access to health care and all of the other basic rights that we fight for our own citizens. In the absence of that, Haiti will be around as a problem in another 10, 20, and 30 years. That cannot be the aspiration of Caribbean people. I ask us as we come to Bridgetown, therefore, to appreciate that we may not have the luxury of having a heads meeting that follows the usual template. But if we can, at this meeting, really expose our hearts and our minds to each other and agree on a common platform on critical issues, we will not get it all right one time, but we must have a common vision, and we must be prepared to recognize that none of us will get exactly what we want, but we must all work for what the people of the Caribbean need. And if we can do that, then we will have run successfully our leg of the relay race. It was once said, when the West Indies Federation broke, that 1 from 10 leaves 0. Today, the heads of government and the heads of state of the Caribbean region must show in a mathematical way that 1 times 15 is equal to 1. If 1 times 15 is equal to 1, then we shall be able to withstand all that is thrown upon us from the world and from within, and arise to the point where we will bring to our people a level of economic development, stability, and prosperity, in spite of the fact that for 6 months of the year we live in fear of that climate crisis, in spite of the fact that we are subject to international economic shocks, in spite of the fact that all of these things continue to be devilish. And why? Because we come from a proud people who have known what it is to be resilient and to rise above all challenges. Indeed, the challenges that we face in the 21st century at a personal level cannot come close to what our ancestors were forced to confront in the settlement of this modern region. So my friends, I want to thank you. I want to salute the people who performed on this platform. I want to salute my young citizens who spoke in a way that almost did not make it necessary for me to speak this evening on this platform. And I invite you, as you reflect on this meeting, to recognize that with a true Caribbean flair, we can do serious things while still remembering who we are and how we move as a people and our culture. And in that vein, I invite you back to Barbados between the 22nd and 31st of August for CARIFESTA 15. I say to my brothers and sisters as heads, please ensure that we can have, even in the midst of all of this, an expression of our creativity, from fashion to food, from art to music to dance to sculpture to talk, which we do well. Let CARIFESTA 15 be that relief point for our people, and that allows us to show the world that in spite of everything else that we face, we have not lost the essence and the flair of being a true Caribbean person. God bless you all, and may we be successful in this conference. Thank you.